Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on The Weekend Show. With every election, there's always a winner and a loser. It's been over 1 month since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn into power as the president of Nigeria, and we've seen some movement. Fuel subsidy has been removed. There's the unification of the naira and dollar rate across the banks and the BDCs and the likes, but we're yet to see full implementation. However, another elections happened, and that was the 10th Assembly, where Senator Godswill Akpabio was elected Senate President. In the last week, we've had conversations about some members of the ruling party threatening to decamp to another party because they aren't satisfied with some of the committees and juicy committees which they wanted to be a part of. How does this affect the parties? How does this affect the Senate? And how does this affect our democracy as a whole? We'll be having that conversation today. And joining us,
We have Ahmed Tijani Mustafa, former SSA New Media, Ocean State. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, it's a pleasure to be here always.
And we also have joining us on Zoom, Faduri Joseph, former presidential aspirant for the Labour Party. Good morning, Faduri. Yes, welcome to the show.
Okay, I think you're on mute, but welcome to the show, Joseph. And I would like to actually start with you. It's been over a month since we've got our president inaugurated. What's your evaluation of his performance so far? I know it's quite early to speak, but a lot has gone on in the last 1 month. What's your evaluation so far?
Thank you for having me on the show. Great to be with you. Like you rightly said, it is too early to call or to make judgment, but the fact is, well, they made some uh, right steps and also some missteps, as the case may be. The subsidy removal was poorly rolled out, to be honest, and also the policy of students loan also, I think, was also a bad policy. I don't think it's the best policy Nigeria needs in the educational sector. But let's see how it all comes and because a lot of time, people get into government in Nigeria, the first 1 year you think, there are policies, they put forward to do something. And after a year, there's no proper implementation and things goes back to status quo. So let's see how it goes and let's see how things gets better as the government get its feet.
Do you have any other expectations so far for the president, apart from, what he has done the past 1 month?
Well, I think I want the president to involve younger generations in his administration. We should stop running the country where the same old people, same set of old politicians, jiggling for office and being appointed everywhere. I think the president should make best of the younger generation that we have in Nigeria now, to run the government and not the same old people. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting to see younger generation in his administration, and not just putting up the old names that we know already. And I don't think they can best do anything better for our country. When you put in the younger generation, they will be the one to pilot the affair of the country. After some of them exit, government.
Okay, what's your take on the National Assembly, and particularly the Senate leadership elections?
It is so sad that that arm of government is supposed to be the one to checkmate the executive. But I'm afraid that the ones we have now are not there to checkmate the executive. They are there to checkmate their own pocket. Because if you have come to the Senate to serve Nigerian people, I think it doesn't matter which committee they put you. Your journey there is not to serve yourself. So if you are put in one committee or the other, then you should see how you can contribute to the Nigerian economy. But if you're fighting for one particular committee or the other, so it means that you are fighting for a committee where you're going to make money from, not a committee where you're going to ordinarily, affect the life of ordinary Nigerian, and not a committee where you'll be able to stand to say, okay, in this committee, I'm going to make an impact that will affect my nation. But it looks like they are all there fighting for different committee that will bring money to their pocket. It is so sad that that is what we have in our nation. And I hope that Nigerians can start looking into the into the National Assembly and vote right people into that office, not people who are going to be going there looking for how to get into committee that where they can enrich themselves. It is so sad, but that seems to be the case with this National Assembly, and it's going to end up being a rubber stamp, not the one that can checkmate the executive.
All right,
That's what I'm seeing right now.
All right, thank you very much. We'll bring you back in, but let's have a conversation also with our studio guest to know his thoughts.
Ahmed, I would like to know your own assessment of the past 1 month that President Tinubu has been in office.
Well, it's surprising that our guest on Zoom said the president has had some missteps, and he listed those missteps. I'm a bit taken aback because one of the easiest ways to measure how well the president has done is to look at the numbers, because numbers don't respect your emotions. They literally don't care how you feel, and the economy has witnessed such a boom over the last 1 month. Publications out there, international and local publications out there, have recorded just how well the Nigerian economy has responded to the Tinubu presidency. That in itself is a marker. I read before coming here that this is the best we've had it in 15 years. So it's funny when somebody else comes on air and says the president has had some missteps and, right, it's early days, yes, but let's judge based on the last 1 month. That was the question. And you look at he did make mention of the subsidy removal. In the Nigerian budget, and we need to be clear with Nigerians, the budget provision for the subsidy was made from January till June. So even without Bola Tinubu's pronouncement on the day of inauguration, by the end of today, the subsidy regime would have ended naturally. What the man did was to put a shock absorber in place for Nigerians, so we don't wake up on the 1st of July and find ourselves without proper preparation for that. And so he made an announcement a month earlier than before the subsidy regime was supposed to go. And he had said this in his campaign again and again and again. Perhaps Nigerians were not listening to him when he was campaigning. He said it that this country literally cannot afford subsidy anymore. It has to go. And we must all agree that we've gone around that mountain for too long a time. It's time for us to begin to make actual recognizable progress. And this is one of the things that we need to get out of the way. It's the big elephant in the room, but we need to move it out. And he's done that. That's, for me, he's taking the bull by the horn. He also promised in his campaign that he was going to institute the student loan. And in the renewed action plan of the APC, it was well detailed. The critics could have come up and criticized that policy and had it tweaked at that time. And it's a work in progress. This is the first time we're trying something like this. So I don't expect that it's going to be 100% perfect. There are going to be tweaks along the way. But this is what applies in saner societies, like we like to say in Nigeria. Nigerians go abroad and see education there, how it works. This is a system that works there. And the lines of success they're not different abroad. From what you have to do, just bring policies that worked elsewhere and domesticate it here in Nigeria. It is a bit, I don't want to use the wrong word, but it's upsetting for me that for a policy that has not even kick-started, we're already picking the loopholes as to why it's not going to work. We're looking for a better country. So let's join hands with the government of the day. Even if your party has not won elections, there must be a winner, there must be a loser. All we're looking for is a better Nigeria. So let's work together and constructively criticize government as they go along.
Talking about constructively criticizing government, I do agree that the fuel subsidy had to go. It had cost us so much, and just yesterday I read that the federal government has saved about 400 billion naira since the subsidy has been removed. We now even have better data because on this show we had debated for so long how the fuel consumption rose from about 40 million to 60 million. And we've seen that since the subsidy was removed, the consumption numbers have reduced, so we're getting better numbers. However, constructive criticism, since subsidy has been removed, minimum wage hasn't been increased. Now, government claims to put palliative in place where monies will be given to the poorest of the poor. The middle class, the rich and the poor, we don't even have a middle class anymore, are complaining about increasing inflation and the hardships on the people. What happens to implementing policies and side by side improving the lives of the people? I say this because when we talk about giving money to the poorest of the poor, the last administration claimed they had given money to people to subsidize them. Besides the trader money and the other market money, which I know did happen, the rest of the palliatives and billions which were said to be given, most Nigerians will say they didn't see it, they didn't get it, they didn't have the effect. Not the trader money and market money. And so standard of living, cost of living has increased largely. The masses, and I'm sure you will agree with this, are complaining. Even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will say it will take a while and all. But why wasn't these measures put in place at the same time you are removing it? And each day we have one new tariff or one new levy being put in place.
Okay, I like the question that you've asked. Okay, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been president for a month. And a day, and subsidy, the regime ends without debate because we don't have that money going from today. So this one has been in office for a month. The moment he removed subsidy, the next thing he did was to constitute a committee of government. Let's be clear, he's not appointed his ministers yet, and it's not a one-man job. It's something that has to work together as a team. And the government has been meeting with labor to find a middle ground, because it's not just about increasing workers' salary. It's one of the solutions. It's not the major solution. Because if that happens, what then happens is that, okay, so my salary goes from 30,000 to 70,000. The woman who is selling rice out there knows now that I have 70,000. She's going to increase the price of her rice that she sells for me at 200 naira to 500
But those prices have gone
solves,
higher regardless.
Yeah, no, but that solves no problem. So government has to find a more brilliant way to solve this. But of course, there's no debating that minimum wage has to increase. Workers' remunerations and salaries have to increase. But that's not the only solution. That's a knee-jerk approach. If you do that, that's just throwing money at the problem. It doesn't then solve the problem of subsidy removal. Because what you've done in that is that the money you're putting into subsidy, all you've done is take that money and put it into the increase in workers' wages. And that solves absolutely no problem. Because at the end of the day, the landlord who you're living in his house now feels that, Didi used to earn 300, now she's earning 500. He's going to increase her rent.
But the landlords are increasing rent.
I know that. So what I'm saying,
higher.
what government needs to do is to find a holistic solution to this. So aside from, along with increasing workers' salary, there's so many other palliatives that need to be put in place by government. And that has to do with working along with labor unions and other civil society organizations to come to this agreement. Bola Tinubu has been president for 1 month.
I know Didi has a follow-up question, but I just want to interject with one last question on this. I believe two things can happen at the same time. So, for instance, ease of doing business has been a problem. Vice President Osinbajo had tried his best during his time. But one of the things which is meant to increase are custom duties. For instance, if we're still not entirely a manufacturing country, people need to bring in goods and items into the country. So if you are removing subsidies and the likes, how about some tax relief? How about ensuring that the process of being able to clear your goods from the ports are made easier? This can be done within a short time, because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has always wanted this, and he has been prepared. We've seen his manifesto. Why aren't these things happening side by side? Why do we have to suffer first?
No, we're not suffering first.
You're not suffering?
No. Let's not contextualize it like that. This is something that we all knew was going to happen. And again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that this man has been president for 30 days. He doesn't have a magic wand that he's just going to wave and have all
But he wove the ones to remove subsidy.
Yeah.
No, subsidy had to go.
With no arrangements.
It was going to go. No matter who became Nigeria's president, subsidy was going to go. And that's a fact. Even if for some magical reason, former President Muhammadu Buhari had remained president, subsidy still had to go. It's not a Bola Tinubu idea. It's a fact that we didn't have budgetary provisions for subsidy to go.
But renewed hope means he should have put something in place at the same time.
He's not president then. He couldn't have had the powers, even if he wished to do that. And we need to be clear about that. Maybe if we had budgetary provisions for subsidy to last for another 6 months, perhaps that would have given them, and he removed it, immediately got into office, we can begin to have these conversations and say, okay, why did you remove it when we could have, extended this for another 6 months? Why you prepared the ground for the palliatives? But like I said again, no matter who had won the elections or the 2020 general election, subsidy had to go at that time.
They all agreed that it was going to go.
Exactly. So, and you don't have the executive powers to make decisions until the day you're sworn in. And this man has been president for 30
days. He made an executive decision on the day he was sworn in, which was 30 days before it was meant to have been removed. And so he would have constituted that committee, thought about the palliatives, and said by the 30th.
That has happened. I don't know how conversant you are, but government has met with Labour, and Labour has said, and that committee has said, okay, in 8 weeks, we will come up with exactly what needs to be done to alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians. And the man recognizes that these are tough times for Nigerians, but like every growing nation, we need to pass through this so that in the end, we can have a country that we can hand over to our children and be proud of.
Okay, so let's move on from the executive to the legislative. There are lots of talks of party defections in the legislative arm of the government. So I would want to know what could be the reason now, in general, behind party defections? Like, why do people just jump parties?
Well, I think it's a Nigerian thing. You know, I have to be said, across all political parties, I think it's a Nigerian thing because if you look at all the democracies across the world, in the UK and America, you rarely find people cross carpets. But I think that the Nigerian context, we look at political parties as avenues to get into office, and you know, our political parties are driven by little or no ideologies just yet. You know, if you are a Republican, you know that you are pro-life. If you are a Democrat, you know they have clearly defined ideals that guide these political parties. That's not the case as it may be in Nigeria. You find somebody who was in the PDP in 2015, now in the APC, now with the Labour Party, you know, just moving, and that's how it is. And we have to appreciate the fact that we are a growing democracy. It's a nascent democracy, so these things, these tooting problems would happen. You know, these tooting problems will happen. It's fine. As we go along, I suppose that clearly defined ideologies will separate both political, or maybe both or more political parties from each other, and so there are defining lines that you cannot wake up and just cross. So you know that for me is what we need to institute with our political parties to ensure that we rarely come to the point where politicians are jumping from one ship to the other.
Before we bring Faduri back in, as a member of the APC, don't you think that some people are taking the older APC members for granted, where even the Senate president currently was a PDP member, and you have a lot of people who have moved from the PDP to the APC and are now taking these juicy positions and committees where the older APC members are complaining about. Don't you think this is something the party should also look into, reward people who, one, are competent, but have also been the cheerleaders and the frontliners of the party?
Well, I understand the sentiment of those who feel like that, but political parties, first of all, are out to win elections, you know, so, and they will do everything within the ambient of the law to win elections. If it means taking a popular candidate from another party, if it guarantees you victory. And I must be very clear, it has its advantages when people cross from one party to another. And I'll be clear with you. For Senator Godswill Akpabio, for instance, who was governor of Akwa Ibom under the PDP for 15 years, for 8 years, what that does for Nigeria's democracy is that we have somebody who has built bridges across the divide. You know, because I honestly feel that Nigeria has to come to a point where we have bipartisan arrangement that can help, you know, bring 2 or 3 political parties together and move this country forward. There are 200 million Nigerians who depend on those people, the 109 senators in the House of Assembly, to make laws that will better their lives. And they must not be, at all points, be divided along party lines. So sometimes it makes sense to have somebody who's been here and is now here, who can see across and balance both sides to the benefit of 200 million Nigerians. And that's why I was particular about Godswill Akpabio becoming Senate President. Because what it does is that it unifies the House across party lines. APC, PDP, Labour Party, it doesn't matter. This is somebody that you have prior relationship with and you can relate with on a one-on-one basis. He's not going to be Senate President for just the APC. He's going to be Senate President for the whole of the Nigerian Senate for the next 4 years.
But wouldn't you say like certain measures should be put in place before this defection happens? Yeah, instead of people just jumping.
I think the Constitution and the new Electoral Act makes it a lot more difficult for these defections to happen. You know, there are very strict measures that one has to establish as reasons for cross-carpeting. You know, like I said, it's a process and will improve with it as we go along with it. I suppose maybe in the next 10, 15 years, cross-carpeting will not be as popular as it is now. And it's not even as popular as it is now as it was in 2007, 2008. So we're improving as we go along with the process. Nigerians just need to be focused on what we're trying to build democratically and understand that baby steps and we'll get there.
Thank you. Let's bring back Faduri. You spoke earlier about the fear of having a rubber stamp National Assembly, but like he has rightly said, politics are about parties and about being able to get the reach the desired goal of your party, and in turn have its impact on Nigeria. Do you think that political parties in Nigeria should move to a point where it's more focused on ideologies? And how do you think the Senate leadership and the National and the House of Reps leadership can ensure that they are not being a rubber stamp assembly in the 10th Assembly?
Thank you for that question. Before I answer the question, I would like to also correct my fellow comrades in the studio that the economy of Nigeria is not in good shape. And you can ask a Nigerian on the streets of Lagos, of Abuja. They can tell you how hard it is. And some of us abroad are bearing so much burden when we have millions of people calling us because it is very hard for people to survive in Nigeria. So the subsidy removal will have been done in a different way, not the way it was done, and shown all Nigerian, out there suffering. So having said that, I think that the problem we have in Nigeria is I see Nigeria as a one-party country and not a two-party country or three-party country because the APC and the PDP has always been more or less one party. So maybe with time, we're going to actually have a country where we define what are the ideology that we are actually pursuing, because if we have ideology, I don't think that a senator in less than 30 days are already thinking of defecting to another party. How in 30 days or in less than 30 days you're just being sworn in and you're already thinking of defecting to another party because you were not put in a particular committee. So it means that your reason for coming to the assembly is not to checkmate the executive. It's just for you to get to a committee where you can be able to make money. So maybe we will have senators that will sit down and make a more stricter law that will make sure that if you are defected from your party, you lose your position, you lose everything, and maybe with that you can be able to check all of these excess of our politicians. It is common, it is rampant, and if we don't have a law in place to check it, we're going to be having it. You belong to a party. Your party is in power. Why are you defecting to another party because you didn't get the position you want? So it is so sad that we have all these politicians and all they do is looking out for themselves and not looking out for Nigerian people, 200 million people that they are supposed to be looking out for. So we need more laws, but I'm afraid if these same people are going to be able to make law, to checkmate themselves. So we're just going to be watching and see, but Nigerian people need to be speaking out and speaking out. And if we continue to speak out and not keep quiet like before, I'm sure that we'll be able to correct some of these politicians. But to be honest with you, all of them are doing it for their personal purposes, not for the purpose of 200 million Nigerians they've gone there to go and represent. And we'll continue to check all of this as we enter into elections in the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Father, what are some potential strategies that could be used to build a stronger party loyalty, since you are clearly against the defection?
Well, I think that when people are collecting forms and wanting to be a senator and all that, I think the party should have something like a loyalty form where, okay, whatever decision of the party or whatever your assignment you're given, you will sign an undertaking that you will accept it without this rancor. So if from even the party system, we make them to do all of this. In America, the presidential election, they will tell you to sign undertaking that whosoever become the candidate, everybody's going to support it. So everybody already signed your undertaking. So you don't tomorrow now come back and say, oh, I'm not supporting this candidate because it's not somebody I want to be the candidate. So if we have party also doing something like that, making politicians to sign undertaking. Once you become a member of this party and you're going for this position, whatever committee you're put in or whatever assignment you're given, you're going to accept it in good faith. Oh, shit.
Thank you so much, Fadiri, for your contributions.
Thank you.
And sorry for that skip there. We do apologize for that being live. Let's wrap up with you. Young people, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said he's going to concentrate a lot on youth empowerment and inclusion, and so this young people and women. We've seen and heard that there are a long list of former governors lobbying to have all the juicy positions. Yes, boards and committees have been dissolved to create space for more people. how crucial is it for young people to be involved in this? Because I hear what you are saying, and I like what you are saying, but I hear some of these older people who are just going there, like he said, some of them is just for their pockets. How important is it to include young, brilliant minds in this administration?
Absolutely important. But let me just quickly speak to what he said. He said people should be made to sign indemnity forms.
Of course, that could infringe on people's
fundamental
rights.
human right
Yes,
of right of
course,
association.
that's true.
You know, so that's not
Thanks
going
for
to work. I don't
highlighting
think that's applicable even in America that he cited. So let's just be clear. Again, to what you've said, you have to look at the antecedents of the man who is currently president and see if that what we're talking about, youth inclusion in government, is a possibility. You know, he that is faithful in little is faithful in much. Bola Tinubu was governor in 1999. If you look at his cabinet, how many regular old Lagos politicians were on that cabinet? He had the likes of Wale Edun, Ralph Argbeshola, the former Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, Yemi Cardoso. And how old were these people at the time? These were perhaps the best of hands that Lagos had to move Lagos for. And the result is evident in Lagos. Lagos, without doubt, is head and shoulders above every other state in this country. You know, and that comes to the quality of leadership that was available at that time. Former Governor Raj Fashola and former Minister Raj Fashola was also a part of that team. So I am beyond confident that this man will replicate the same thing on a bigger scale in Nigeria. It is normal for politicians to lobby, is what they do, but I have absolute confidence in the man who is at the helm of affairs that all of this, a lot of people are going to end up disappointed. I can tell you that for a fact. A lot of people are going to end up disappointed. And we're not disappointed because they already know what to expect from this man, unless, of course, maybe they're not students of history, which I think is a critical point for me, because I've studied this man for the last 20 years that he's been in public office. And I know what he can do or what he has done, and that builds my expectation to what to expect from Nigeria. I'm confident.
You spoke about Lagos, and I hear a lot of APC supporters and Lagos people talk about Lagos. Lagos still has an overcrowding issue. It has a drainage issue. Once it rains, it's all over the place. There's still a high crime rate. Even up until this year, we hear of people getting robbed on the bridges. Lagos is the commercial capital of Nigeria, and also because of its proximity to the ocean and the ports. Do you really think it's as a result of Bola Tinubu's being amazing, or its proximity to the commerce which stays there? Because we still have a lot of problems that have persisted in Lagos in the last 23 years.
Lagos has been federal capital of this country without a functional rail system, a functional transport system, mass transit system, a functional waste disposal system, until Bola Tinubu became governor and put not just what we can see, institutions, Loma, Lasema, Lasepa, all these institutions were put in place by his government and built upon by successive governments in Lagos. While Lagos is not as ideal as we expect it to be, in comparison to every other state in Nigeria, and I will refer to that, today, for Nigerians who cannot jackpot, Lagos is the ideal place to go to. Imagine if the UK flung its borders open today and Nigerians are allowed, or Africans generally, or immigrants from across the world are allowed to put pressure on the infrastructure of the UK. That infrastructure will become just as what it is in Lagos.
That's a good place to live, and because of time, we'll definitely bring you back on the show just to evaluate and analyze, and also hold you accountable when we see when more appointments have been made, and maybe with 100 days in office being achieved. So our viewers at home, that's much we can take on today's episode. You can watch our episodes on YouTube at Weekend Show NG. You can also follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow me at Andy Madaki.
And you can follow me at Didi_ on Instagram and Twitter.
And just before we leave, I want to say Barakat Salah to all of our Muslim brothers and sisters. And to all of you who sent me Ram, thank you. And to those of you who didn't, we'll visit that next time. But do have a blessed weekend, and we will see you next week.